Okay, so yeah. Now, a lot of people, even a lot of supposedly free market people, defend the interstate system. They think, that, this is some sort of great advancement. It lowered transportation costs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't totally deny these things. Of course, the interstate system has benefited us in a number of ways. I traveled here on several of them myself. But the thing is that much like in any sort of government action, people are only looking at what is seen. It's the old Bastiat thing. So what they don't see are the costs of it, and also that it did not succeed in actually what it was planning to do. Mainly, the interstate system was supposed to make traffic, diminish the amount of traffic. It was supposed to make travel faster, and it was supposed to actually revitalize cities. None of these things happened. In fact, most of these things got worse. And so this is yet another mistake of central planning. Let's see, which is it the left button here? All right, very good. So this is basically the largest central planning project in American history. We have World War II, World War I. Those are larger projects, but at least in the civilian world, the interstate system is the biggest thing. It is a huge grid laid out across the United States. Billions upon billions of dollars, miles and miles of concrete, etc. So this is the most massive project that the federal government has ever undertaken during peacetime. And it's always considered to be, by most people, this huge success. But actually, it failed in most of its stated goals. And I looked specifically at St. Louis, Missouri, but there are a number of other places. I've examined the literature on the interstate system as a whole, so this applies most other places as well, but St. Louis is where I focused on, partly because that's where I live, so I was interested. Basically, the three things that the planners failed to see is that they thought that it would revitalize the city, and when in fact, actually what it did was cause more people to move out to the suburbs and the city to expand, sprawl. And then also, it did not actually relieve traffic congestion as they had planned. And further, there was a system of mass transit in the city that had been privately owned, although heavily regulated and eventually monopolized, and it completely destroyed that. It put an end to it completely. Okay, and just so you know something of what I'm talking about when I get to the actual traffic figures, this is a map of St. Louis with the interstates. I'm going to step away from the microphone for a minute just to point out where things are. So this is Interstate I-44 right here. It starts in St. Louis, runs all the way down through Oklahoma City out to California. This is Interstate 70 up north, goes all the way across the country, goes through Ohio, goes out to Colorado. Then you have I-55 coming up from the south, running up all the way to Chicago. And then I-64 here was not an original part of the interstate system. They just took a U.S. highway, U.S. 40, slapped an I-64 thing on it and called it an interstate. It's not really an interstate. And then 270, which is the beltway around St. Louis, which at the time was considered to be, way out in the country. Well, now that's the most congested interstate in the whole metro area. You cannot get on that thing at 9 in the morning going northbound and not just be stuck there for hours. It's miserable. Okay, so in 1959, the interstate system itself was commissioned in 1957. In 59, the city of St. Louis commissions the Wilbur Smith and Associates Company to create a report on what the impact of the interstate system will be, how it will be funded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, these authors, they come in and they go, look, everyone else that has made predictions about highway planning before, they've all been miserably wrong. They've all made all these mistakes. But no, don't worry. We know what we're doing. We have complete confidence in our ability to predict these changes. And they were completely wrong, but that didn't stop them, of course. So they definitely thought they could predict changes in traffic flows and also population. First thing, population. They actually expected the city of St. Louis to grow between 1957 and 1980. But so the population of St. Louis in the 40s and into the 50s was well over 800,000 people, and they actually expected a slight uptick over time. But what actually happened is the city of St. Louis, the population fell by over 400,000 people. And the city of St. Louis now actually is about 350,000 people. So it lost over 50% of its population in the last 50 years. But they also did not expect people to move out to the suburbs as fast as they did. So St. Charles County, St. Charles is probably the most famous suburb of St. Louis. It was expected to grow, fairly substantially, 36,000 to about 56,000, which is as percentages go, a large increase. But in fact, it almost quadrupled in size to 144,000. And basically, what the planners did not see is that the interstate system itself was going to create more drastic changes. They were predicting from current trends at the time and not predicting from what their plans would actually do to the structure of population, etc. And so the interstates basically benefited the suburbs at the expense of the city. And trust me, St. Louis City now is in a bad way. Okay, also, probably more importantly, because what does it really matter where people live? It's not, at least to libertarians, it's not a great matter of concern if you live in the city, if you live in the suburbs, who cares? But the point there is that the interstate planners didn't know what they were doing. More importantly, though, the main goal of the interstate system is to alleviate traffic, to make travel, easier. And it failed in this. The way they studied this is they set up different, what they called, I can't remember, the mark lines, I think it was, that they would study how many cars pass through there a day and make projections about how many should be going through after the interstate system is completed. And so these are just a few examples. Trust me, if you look at too many of these, your eyes will roll back in your head and you'll fall right asleep. But this is, 3 out of hundreds. So they said that New Florissant Road carry about 3,327 automobiles a day. Actually, by 1980, 9,000. So this is triple the amount of amount of cars that they expected. Brown Road, 4,300, actually 10,000, over double. Sappington Road, 3,000 to 10,000. Again, triple. These are just, by any reasonable estimate, this is incredibly off from what it actually was. Now, the part that I consider most interesting is that the mass transit system. Now, St. Louis had a very thriving mass transit system before the interstate system was created. It was in a decline by the time that the interstates were coming in, but this finished it off. There were some buses, but mainly what it was trolley lines. They had a lot of trolley lines that had been operating since the 1850s. So these are incredibly old, but they had been updating them, and it was still it had been several, I think up to about 5 different systems operating at any one time. During the 20s, when the stock market crashed, most of those systems went under, and so the city conglomerated them together and gave them monopoly on trolley lines in the city. But still, it was a private company. They're not getting any tax money. If you wanted to ride, you were paying money, so it was still a voluntary system. It wasn't funded by taxes at all. And when they started constructing the interstate system, they closed 2 of the lines directly. Just say, sorry, you can't operate anymore. Just for construction on Interstate 70. Local road construction on Forest Park Parkway, which is actually one of the better roads in St. Louis, closed another 2. And a lot of the other ones were cut off at areas, and so they had to cut service to areas, and so their ridership fell. So this is hurting their profits all around. The most profitable line for years had been the one serving, it was called the University Clayton line, which served Washington University, which is my alma mater, so I took a special interest in that one. But it was 1960, they informed it that they were not going to be able to actually get to the university anymore because of road work also on Forest Park Parkway, which, by the way, they're still working on. It never stops. I mean, every year it's another thing they have to add on, et cetera, et cetera. But so they scale that back for road work. It becomes unprofitable. 1964 it closes. Then the company itself goes under, and of course, because even though they've just done everything they possibly could to destroy it, the government then goes, oh well, it's too big to fail. Let's take it over. And so 1963, they take it over, and then promptly close the last streetcar lines in 1966. Now, I want you guys to guess. What do you think happens after they close these streetcar lines with the mass transit in St. Louis? I mean, it's already government controlled, but anyone have any idea? Yeah. Rail system? Yes. They built a light rail system. Which, okay, here's a picture of the old streetcar lines. This is one going down 14th Street downtown. This is back in the 40s, sort of St. Louis's heyday. Stan Musial is playing for the Cardinals. Things are good. And then, so first they replace them by buses, and of course now they're subsidizing them, and they're operating at a loss, so taxpayers are funding this. And then, 1990, they start work on a light rail system that actually literally goes over, in about 50% of the cases, it is literally built over the old streetcar lines. This is, I mean, it's utter absurdity, but they subsidize this thing for billions of dollars, and never turn a profit, never will, but yet they've expanded it several times, and they still plan on several more expansions. And they also don't ever expand it to anywhere where anyone actually rides it, but that's another issue entirely. And so here's a picture of that as the new Metro link going out from Union Station out to the suburbs. But this thing is complete waste of money, and they could have probably just left the old system in place, and with updates would have probably had a little bit better service than they do now for no taxpayer money. But that's the way it goes. Okay, thank you very much.